Creative Mojo on TogiNet. And here again is your host, Mark Lipinski.
Hi, Cupcakes. Welcome back to Creative Mojo with Mark Lipinski. I'm thrilled that you're here with me today, just a few days before Christmas. Listen, my email address is radiomark@me.com. So feel free to drop me a note with a question or a comment or a topic you'd like me to cover here on the show. If you listen to the podcast through iTunes, please leave a rating and a review. Now, later on today's show, I'm going to be talking about some motivational tips for staying positive throughout the holiday season and beyond. But I'm so excited to talk to this next guest. I met her, EllynAnne Geisel, in Houston after she released her first book, the bestseller called The Apron Book. Now, EllynAnne and I have always wanted to do a project or an article together, but we just couldn't figure out what it was, and the time just kept slipping by, and we kept missing each other. So I'm so pleased that she's here with me today on Creative Mojo. A vintage cloth collector, the Kitchen Linens book is EllynAnne's return to the source of her endless inspiration. The textiles our mothers and grandmothers crafted for both daily comfort and enduring legacy. EllynAnne, welcome to Creative Mojo.
Good morning. Hey.
Hey, how are you? I'm so happy to talk with you. Listen, your first book was about vintage aprons. This one's about vintage linens. I'm sensing a theme here. What's the appeal of the vintage textiles to you?
For me, it is a way of connecting to women of earlier generations through the domestic arts of the household, and not the physical doings of the household, but actually the creation of the items, that were used in the chores, the dish toweling, the apron, that kind of thing, and the handiwork that they applied to something so mundane just touches my heart. And when I see these items tossed by families cleaning out, mother's home, I have to scoop them up and give them new life. It just kills me to see them lingering in, a pile of secondhand goods.
You know what? That's really interesting that you say that, because I do a lot. Listen, I'm a shopaholic and I'm a hoardaholic. So I'm always out at some, antique store. I can't pass up a flea market. And you can still find tons and tons and tons of these, like hand embroidered, hand needle pointed, linens. I mean, they're everywhere, and they're practically giving them away. My hunch is, and you tell me if I'm wrong, now's the time, folks, if you're going to start a collection, to scoop them up, because they're becoming more and more rare.
Well, one thing is the fabrics that were used 80-some years ago, you can yank on those things. The weave was so tight. Those items are going to be around for another 80 years. The goods that are being mass-produced today, or even hand embroidery and all on a fabric that is modern, it's not going to last because the weave is so cheap. It's just not dense enough. So one of the reasons I also think that all this stuff is ending up in secondhand stores is people see cloth. It's all rumpled. It's been in a drawer. Now it's been thrown in some bag, then in a box, at a shop. All they can think of is, I'm not ironing that. And so it languishes, and the price of these items just gets less and less until, on a good day, it's 25 cents for a damask napkin that is as large as, a small tablecloth. So this is definitely the time to pick these items up, only because people are continuing to get rid of them because of the stigma of ironing.
Now, why do you think our parents' vintage linens have such a strong memories? Why do they evoke such strong memories for us?
I believe that unlike a recollection of a conversation, which is open to interpretation, all those years later, we can recall when old bits of household linen were actually used, like a monogrammed damask napkin that came out of, the linen press strictly at Thanksgiving. Well, that would remind us, or it would me, of an actual Thanksgiving, which would remind me of a favorite recipe, a drunk uncle, a mustached aunt, that kind of thing. The children's table, all the cousins, and all told, those memories become my fodder for storytelling about family that is long gone.
So it kind of acts as a symbolic record of family tree. So do you think a hand towel with a picture of Justin Bieber on it will evoke the same kind of memories for our kids?
Oh, God, I hope so. No. That hand towel, such a thing, you know what? It may not have existed until you just suggested it, so it's on now. Some listener is going, aha! But given the lack of quality in the fabric that's out there today, I would doubt that it'll be around in 50 years, and that's the thing. Mickey Mouse stuff, there are always collectors for Mickey Mouse, and perhaps there is a market for Justin's adorable face embroidered, 1,000 stitches to the edge on some toweling. I don't know, but I hope so.
Okay, but let me ask you, because we're kind of running out of time here. Is the handcrafted art form, like these beautiful embroideries and the French knots and the chain stitches and the lazy daisy stitches, as an art form on these vintage tea towels and hand towels, are they in danger of being lost at this point, do you think?
Oh, absolutely not. All those art forms have experienced a Lazarus. I swear to you, they have risen from the dead. It is just the most inspiring time. The traditions have experienced an epiphany by young women who are discovering that deep within all of us, there's been this sleeping gene of, knowing how to do the domestic arts. We just got so busy that we lost, we could not take the time any longer to pass it down the way it had been. But now awakened, this domestic gene is just surging across the nation and the globe. And it's very heartening to me to see girls figuring out that when you make something yourself, it does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be good enough. And I think that's the catchphrase that drove women of earlier generations. They weren't after perfection. They just wanted some gaiety, in the kitchen.
Well, that's true. But, in the past generations, if you weren't perfect, you couldn't get a divorce. Now you have a bad French knot and you're kicked to the curb.
Oh, I don't know anything more deserving of kicking your butt to the curb than that, Mark.
Very quickly, what's your favorite way to display these little works of art?
Oh, I just gave a Hanukkah party, and I set up my desserts on an old ironing board in front of some windows, and I strung a little clothesline, window to window, and then I clothespined all my little dessert napkins, and hankies. I use those fabulous colored hankies as little hands, where you're not going to be eating like corn on the cob or ribs or something like that. Just something pretty to, sort of touch the tip of your fingers. And so I displayed them that way, and I have to say I was very proud of that. It was fun and unique, and my guests really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, EllynAnne Geisel, for talking with me today. You can find EllynAnne's book, The Kitchen's Linen Book, in bookstores all over the world. A link to her website can be found on my blog at www.marklipinski.com or Creative Mojo's homepage on TogiNet.com.